We can move on to the next slide also, the setup of the department. And here really is something that really the concierge comes into his own. When you really have a wonderful concierge, is first of all very enthusiastic, first of all very much loving the city where he works or she works, and they really spend an awful lot of time out there to discover it themselves, and then have the wonderful energy to really bring to work all the things that they learn and share it with the guests, and also share it with the team as well. So you really need to worry about learning everything about restaurants, as really on this slide, local attractions, museums and galleries, to really have an understanding if there are any trade fairs going on, places of interest, special events, unique spots. I had a couple of wonderful spots myself in London, and well, I still do have them. And one of them is in Greenwich, the Greenwich Peninsula, where you really go to the observatory, and that's where you really have Greenwich Mean Time, that you really have the physicality. You can see where the Eastern and Western hemispheres are basically split. There is a wonderful lookout point, and you can see the whole of East London, and from there you can see some really major landmarks of the city. And once you love your town where you live, once you have these little passions, and once you're happy to share them with the guests, give them little tips and offer them, and once they actually follow your advice and they return at the end of the evening and share with you their personal experience, it really makes it all worthwhile. And this is really the knack, the speciality of the concierge, and this is something that we really want to have for the future. Are we okay with time?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
I accidentally clicked. We have about 15 more minutes, so you're okay right now.
Okay. So really, personal experiences that an individual that you will all have in the future in any city, make them your own, and record those experiences and use those experiences when you make a recommendation to the guests, because then you will really make something very unusual and something very special for the guests to remember. The next slide is really still about setting up for the department. As I mentioned before, having access to unique venues. So really make an effort to constantly meet people that are behind businesses, whether they're events, whether they're museums, whether they are theaters, whether they are restaurants. Really make an effort there to get to know people and make sure that they know you, because very often then they will actually open up an opportunity as well for you to be part of their businesses as well. One of the other strong elements is guided tours. I learned over the years that businesses have their own specialties, and guides, believe it or not, also have their own specialties as well. So if you get to know of a very interesting and a varied group of guides, they will be able actually to support what you do in order to really ensure that the guests have a wonderful experience in their own city. Some specialize in architecture, some history of art, some in literature, some are specialized in modern building and infrastructure. So you will be very surprised how many guides are out there in any given city that have the ability to open up the city to anyone in a very, very unique key and subject. Also working with destination management companies, they spend an awful lot of time and efforts also themselves delivering and creating very special and unique experiences. So if you get to know them and they get to know you, they can also give you access to their network as well. So it is very productive there too. Working with clients and bookers, of course, and travel agents, you need to really understand what the guest requires, what the guest needs, and so very often you spend a lot of the time to actually find out what the guest needs and prepare a very long list of elements that are required before their arrival. Examples, of course, engaging in preparing birthdays and weddings and any special events and celebration as well. Always be open to share your knowledge and recommendations with all these people, because this way you really share the understanding with everyone out there that you have a vast knowledge, and you always will be able to help them and to support the guest, and of course support the hotel where you're working. Next slide is creating long-term plans with strategic management, really. And this is something that is really more. This is really something that happens seldom, but I would like to give you an example here, because we had, when I was working with Melbourne Hotels, a very interesting moment in the life of the company, because the 3 hotels were really working with an awful lot of chauffeurs company, and the chauffeur companies were not providing a very good service. And on a strategic management level, we had an opportunity to engage with the CEO and to bring to the CEO quite an important issue, problem, service element, because there was a very low reliability with the service company that were providing the chauffeur service, and we had an awful lot of volume of work to cover, and we also had, unfortunately, at the time, an awful lot of complaints. So strategically, we designed a program, and we made a proposal to the CEO to actually create a fleet service. There was an awful lot of work involved, but within the period of about 8 months, under 1 year, with the support of the CEO, we were able to create a fleet operation with a manager, with also a number of chauffeurs, and we were able also to acquire cars. This is always going to be, for all of you to understand, a very important element of the operation in any hotel, transfers and chauffeur services. So if you can actually bring into your own operation the full control of such service, is going to be incredibly beneficial, because you can control it and you can ensure that the guests are fully satisfied. LQA, leading quality assurance, is a benchmark used throughout the world with many companies and hotel chains in order to guarantee a service standard and a certain height of quality. And of course, at strategic level, as a concierge, as a head concierge, you really want to ensure that you have a very high performance, you deliver very high scores, and of course, you take care of managing if there are any shortfalls there along the way, with action planning, training and retraining if required. One of the key and strong elements that I mentioned very early in my presentation was the development of a concierge. So from the strategic point of view, I've done it several times through the years, focusing, finding a true star, someone that really is completely and totally determined to become a concierge. And then this becomes a two-way street where you can start developing the skills of a new concierge, and between and after 5 to 7 years later, you have the incredible moment where you can introduce them to the society. They receive the keys, and of course, is just a moment of magic. You then create another concierge in this wonderful family. So this is something that is a strategic element. You need to really start engaging and working long term with 1 or 2 or even 3 colleagues to really bring them to this incredible target. And also by doing so, you engage with them and you arrange with them to go to attend management or supervisory courses, where they basically start growing as manager and supervisor themselves. One other part is to attend every year strategically, to try to attend every year the yearly Congress for the Concierge for the Clé d'Or. It is always very special to get together with the family, the Concierge family every year. That's where you build your network, you get to know your friends, and you really also, generally speaking, create a platform where you're always up to date with what is happening in the industry as well. So if it is possible to attend it every year, is very beneficial in many ways. I am coming really to the end of the presentation, and I would like to just add in one little element. I discovered this book many years ago. It is called The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard, and it's a very simple tool, but is very effective. One day soon you will be supervisors, you will be managers, and you will be able to really sit down every day for a few minutes, brief and debrief your team, and this book becomes really very valuable. I would like also to really thank, at this moment, very much Kimberly for your help and support. We've been obviously dealing in the last few weeks for the presentation to bring it to life. Thank you very much for your time. And also Marta Otrebska, that introduced me to you, and it has been really a pleasure sort of knowing her, meeting her, and having the opportunity to be here today. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. Yes, I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. What an amazing, insightful lecture. I truly liked the story about you having to bring the stone from one place to another. That was really intriguing. I'm sure everyone here learned a lot and enhanced our knowledge about strategic management and concierge. We do have a few questions, if you don't mind. Let's see. Sure. The first one, this is just in general. This presentation has been recorded and it will be posted onto our YouTube, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. Thank you for that question. Everyone's just saying thank you. There was one question, is what do you do when a guest asks you for a restaurant and then you call and they don't have availability, but they're so certain that they want that exact restaurant?
So this is where your connection come in.
Yeah.
And this is where you really want to develop over time and over the years your relationship and your connection with your suppliers. Sometimes it's very difficult to say no, and guests usually do understand that. It's always very important to offer an alternative. And if the guest really must go to that particular restaurant, then what you need to do, you really need to work very closely with the restaurant. And you don't want to be overbearing, you don't want to be intrusive, you don't want to be rude or aggressive or arrogant, And certainly what you need to do, you need to start a journey for that particular given guest request reservation and calling the restaurant almost on a daily basis to find out if there are any cancellations, if there are any availabilities. Always be very honest and clear with the guest, and always have a plan B, because there needs to be always a plan B in place. Sometimes you can actually surprise the guest with your alternative recommendation. You can send them somewhere where they actually be surprised and blown away that is better than their original first choice. But I would say that over time, the essence is having the ability to develop and keep and hold and grow this wonderful relationship with the suppliers.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. One last question is, what's been the hardest challenge you had to face with the guests, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. This is something that basically took me 6 months, almost to the day, to resolve. And a doorman drove out of the car park one Sunday morning a vintage Jaguar. And as he did so, he drove the car onto the gates as they were opening, and they're swinging basically inwards. He drove the car on the gates, damaging the car. The car was driven out of the car park and parked in front of the hotel. And then I called right away the guest to tell the guest what had happened. The guest came down and his heart sank, simply because the car had been sold already 2 days earlier. And the guest was about to leave 2 hours later to drive to Hong Kong, to fly to Hong Kong, and he was leaving the UK for good. He was moving to the UK. So at this moment in time, I had in front of me an incredibly upset guest, because his car had just been damaged, and he was about to leave. So basically, sort of the world caved in. And what I had to do, I had to then manage also the person that was about to arrive an hour later to collect the car that he just purchased. So as you can imagine, the car was no longer of the same value. The car needed to be repaired. And because it was a vintage Jaguar, it had to be repaired by a specialist. And it took 6 months for the car to be repaired. And it took me the best part of 4 months to work out all the paperwork and all the liabilities with the insurance company. So this was just almost a full-time job in itself over a period of 6 months to ensure that the original guest and the original owner of the car was completely and totally fully satisfied, and the new customer not only was satisfied with the repair, but also satisfied that the car would not really lose any intrinsic value. I do have another couple of long stories regarding the bombing in London, the London bombing, the attacks in about 18, 20 years ago, but they were so terrible and so harrowing that really I tend to forget those difficult times. But also during the day of the bombing, I had to deal with some difficult situations, and the proudest sort of outcome, the silver lining there, was that every guest of the hotel was looked after. No one was injured, but I was also able to help an awful lot of people coming into the building that really had nothing to do with the business, and I was able to really take care of them as well. But you know, this sort of the car experience probably was the most challenging. That took a long time also to resolve.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't want to be either the old car owner or the new car owner, that's for sure. Thank you so much for answering that question. We have a lot of gratitude for you and your guest lecture today. A lot of our students are writing very admirable career path. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to learn about a new department and how you started. Very informative. So that concludes today's guest lecture. Thank you so much, Corrado, for sharing your ideas and your experience with us. I'm sure everyone here has had a very insightful time. So again, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our students who have joined. Make sure to keep an eye out for any new upcoming events. And I wish you a great day ahead. Thank you so much.